Greetings, Ohio Valley. This is Dan Lima with OSU Extension from Belmont County.
And this is Karen Cox from WVU Extension in Ohio County. Thanks for tuning in to Extension Calling, your source for research-based information for the farm, garden, and home. COVID-19 vaccines were given to tens of thousands of people in early clinical trials and to hundreds of millions of Americans since. Top health experts agree that COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, and trusted. Visit vaccinate.wv.gov or contact your local health department.
We're starting to see a significant change in our season, mostly in how the world is being decorated. And we're going to talk a little bit about one of the most popular Christmas decorations. And we're not talking about a tree or a wreath, but we are talking about the beautiful poinsettia.
Yes, and it also, apparently, 'tis the season for some lambs, which I actually have some lamb meat in my freezer, which I plan on preparing maybe this weekend, next weekend.
Delicious. Can I come over?
You're always welcome, Karen.
I'm bringing 3 other people with me, just so you know.
I have a lot of lamb meat, so sounds good.
Yes.
All right. So, yeah, it is just, I love driving around, seeing the lights. I could do without the cold, but it's like Christmas warms you up a little bit on the inside. So you almost don't mind it being cold with all the Christmas lights up. It's just nice out there. All right. And let's go ahead and talk about a plant that actually doesn't do too well in the cold, but is a Christmas plant. It's kind of eluded me, the reasoning why, but maybe it's the colors.
Well, it's the time. So the poinsettia needs shorter days, and we get shorter days around Christmas time. So once the shorter days come in is when it changes colors. And so it's specific to Christmas, even if it's not related to cold weather. But, they do celebrate Christmas in places with warm weather, too.
Yeah, so let's talk about the poinsettias. So poinsettias, even though they usually come in reds, yellows, whites, so I could see the Christmas colors, but sometimes you can get purple in them somehow, like in the actual leaves. But when we see those bright colored tops, I'm going to call them tops of this plant, they're actually the bright colored red leaves that we see are kind of leaves, but they're called bracts. Bracts are basically a leaf that's been modified to look like a flower. If you look dead in the center of a poinsettia, you'll see those little balls, little green balls. Sometimes they open up and they're a little yellow. Those little yellow things are the anthers, so the stamens and everything. And that's where the pollen is, and those are actually the flower. It's just like this conglomerate of mini flowers, and then the bracts, the red modified leaves around it, make it all showy.
So in that sense, the poinsettia is very much like a dogwood tree in that the thing that most people think is the flower actually isn't a flower at all. It is just a landing pad or an attention grabber for the little bitty teeny tiny flowers that are hidden inside.
Right, and all the Christmas enthusiasts out there that love to decorate. In fact, I know some people, like if you go further south, you might be familiar with this, like down around Florida and the Caribbean. I've seen pictures of people decorating or making like entire trees from poinsettias.
Yeah, and they are a sight to behold, let me tell you. They are absolutely beautiful. Basically, what they do is they have a wire-ringed support system that they put pots in all around. And that's something you could even do here if you could get enough poinsettias. And we do have local poinsettia producers. They must be grown in a greenhouse. And so, because as Dan said, they don't like cold weather, but we do have people who grow poinsettias locally. And so it is something you can purchase locally. Yay, local. And the one I know of is Klug's Greenhouse. I'm not sure if there are any other greenhouses that are producing poinsettias for sale right now. Do you?
I think some of our local nurseries are. I mean, you can find them a lot of places, but yeah, your local nurseries that you normally go to in springtime, give them a call. They might be open, and they might be selling poinsettias. Not everybody will jump on board, but some of them will.
Yeah, so we actually got to tour Klugs in the winter when they were just getting ready for their big poinsettia sale. And it was fantastic to see rows upon rows upon rows of these beautiful poinsettias. And they were different colors too, like Dan was saying. And that's done by basically just adapting the color system in the roots, adding a little bit of dye to them. And it just kind of pulls it up through the root system. But a lot of the red ones and the white ones and the stripy ones, those are all adaptations. They've been bred to be that way. And I'm pretty sure the blue ones are dyed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Usually the blue flowers, blue, I'm trying to think, there are blue that are actually really dark anthocyanins, and they consider those blue. But if you see it blue like sky blue, it's probably a dye.
Except for cornflowers.
That's true. Well, that's true. Corn's not a dye. That's actual anthocyanin. And just because of the way the alluron is kind of fades it a little bit, that purple can almost look really blue. So not always, yeah, but there's a lot of good colors out there that just occur naturally. Some of the variegated ones that we see are actually caused by viruses. So plant specific viruses. Nothing scary. No, don't freak out. You're not going to get sick. You're not going to catch the flu. But some of those viruses will variegate a lot of plants. And if we're talking about hostas, poinsettias in some cases, those are just plants that somehow got infected, and they don't kill the plant. But if you kept cloning them, I'm going to say propagating them vegetatively, that's probably a better way to put it, you can continue that characteristic that's so interesting, which actually brings up another point why, even though poinsettias aren't typically grown in the summer, you shouldn't really do a lot of flowers and vegetables in the same area, especially a high tonal if you have something like that, because what's going to happen is a lot of those plants do have plant specific viruses, and sometimes it's not a big jump in terms of family. Like if you think about sweet potato, there's a lot of ornamental sweet potato, and there's sweet potatoes that we eat. So if you get a variegated sweet potato that's ornamental, well, that could really mess up your sweet potato crop.
I hadn't thought about that before. That's interesting information, Dan.
All right, but let's switch gears to poinsettias.
Right.
And we were discussing how it's more of a tropical type plant. So it does like direct light. But here's where you got to be careful. Because it's a tropical plant and it likes direct light, and we're in the cold, those windows are also cold. Those plants really don't hold up when the temperatures start dropping too much below 60. Yeah, that's like us, right? The plants can't hold up as good as we can. So putting stuff in the windowsill, you got to be careful.
Yeah, they also don't like the fluctuation of temperature. So a cold draft that's coming in, or if you set it near a heating vent where it would drastically increase the temperature for a short period of time, that's also going to make this plant unhappy. So you need to put it in a place where it's going to get good light, but it's also going to get an even temperature that is nice and toasty.
Yeah. And you know what? There are businesses around here that I've noticed. If you see people that like to decorate with poinsettias, they like to put them in windowsills. And the ones on the windowsills are typically not doing as well as the ones that are on a shelf away from that because of drafts, because of that cold. And they're pretty noticeable. They will wilt. You get some leaf drop. And, poinsettia without red leaves is pretty ugly.
I think that's all a matter of opinion,
Nope.
Sometimes green's nice.
It is, but not when you want the red.
Right. So anyway, to keep your poinsettias that you've gotten for your Christmas decorations nice and healthy and beautiful, keep them away from drafts, make sure they have access to sunlight. And then there's this watering thing. So water is a huge issue with poinsettias because they are also very sensitive to water fluctuations. So they don't like it dry and they don't like it wet. So you have to be careful to not overwater poinsettias, and you also have to be careful to not let them thoroughly dry out.
Yeah, those poinsettias, fickle as can be, but pretty. All right. And so now, so you get those poinsettias, right? And Karen's right. After the flowering process is over, you'll start to get a little decrease in the reds and the yellows and the purples that you were buying. And those bracts might even fall off. But let's just say you still like your plants and, you want to keep it alive and you want to enjoy it year round. there are things you can do. So January through March, just make sure you keep that watering going. Make sure it has light, because at this point, if you're going to keep it long term, that light's going to be more and more important. If you just want it for a couple weeks, nice and red and pretty, well, it's not really gonna die in a couple weeks, as long as you don't do anything drastic to it. But if you do want to keep it, you want to make sure it's getting some light.
Yeah, and so when you're keeping it, about a month after Christmas, the bracts will start to fall off. They've finished their job. It's done flowering. It no longer needs to attract pollinators and whatnot. So the bracts just fall off. And then everyone goes, oh no, I've killed it. But you haven't. This is just a natural process of the plant. And so you just need to, at that point, start slowly backing off on the amount of water you're giving it, because it's kind of going into its dormant rest period. It's not going to be really dormant, but it is going into a rest period, so it's not going to need as much water. So when the bracts start to fall off, don't worry. It's perfectly normal. You have not killed the plant. Just back off on the water very slowly and gradually. You're also going to... All right, so just tell me, Dan.
All right, so
no more charades.
All right, keep the watering up like Aaron was saying. You'll probably have some color until possibly even March. But when those bracts fall off, you want to start cutting back on the water because it's going dormant, like Aaron was saying. And you want to keep it about 60 degrees still. So don't get too crazy with it and put it in the garage and let it get to 50, because then it'll die. Starting around May, then you might want to cut some of the stems back, especially in the areas that the bracts fell off. Repot it possibly in a larger container with some good potting soil.
Yeah, and you can even be pretty aggressive on your pruning at this time. When you're repotting it, you can cut it back to about 3 to 5 inches, depending on its original size. And that's going to keep it from getting really leggy and being very sparse whenever the time comes for the bracts to change color again.
Right. So now the plant's basically going to start ramping up again. You've repotted it. At this point, it still likes direct light. So you want to put it indoors because of that 60 degrees. So watch that 60 degrees. Put it by a nice window. Maybe now the window's not going to be as big of a concern because we don't have temperatures in the 20s, hopefully. But you never know. But it does like 60 degrees, direct light. So the plant now is basically going to start ramping up again. So that's when you're putting the fertilizers. You're going to get greener leaves. You're not going to get the bracts yet. You're not going to get anything pretty.
Well, unless you consider green pretty, which I do. So anyway, yeah, you're definitely right. Throughout the summertime, you're going to need to keep that soil moist and give it some fertilizer, keep it well fed. They are hungry plants, so they do need fertilizer. You can, once it gets to be over 60 degrees at night, you can sink that pot into the garden and let nature water it a little bit. But do keep in mind, you're going to be inviting other pests to come and attack your plant and join your soil. So when you bring it back in your house, you may have some issues then. But that is definitely an option, especially if you're going to go on vacation or something and you don't want it to dry out while you're gone. Again, when you bring it inside, vents are still going to be an issue. Once your air conditioning starts kicking on in the summertime, make sure that your plant is not right next to that cold air vent, because when it comes out, it's trying to lower your house temperature and it's going to be a lot colder in that spot. And also it will dry out your plant very quickly. So you do need to watch that as well.
Yeah. And you might be moving it in and out like in May and June, depending on, we still might have a frost in May. But yeah. All right. So again, fertilizer, direct light, watch the 60 degrees. In July now the plant's warm, full sun. Now it's in its native habitat, pretty much. It's a tropical plant. I want to say it's from Central America originally. Maybe not.
It sounds right, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, but so you'll get the idea of, so it likes moist, direct sun. All right, now come July, when the days start getting longer, these plants are going to start bolting up pretty quickly. And you don't want a tall, leggy, lengthy looking poinsettia. So you want to start pinching back some of the main stems that are kind of growing up really tall. And then what that'll do is that'll keep the plant nice and bushy and stout. And you're going to get a nice full green still at this point poinsettia plant.
Now, if you're feeling ambitious at this time of year in July, early July, and you're pruning off the ends of this poinsettia that's going crazy. If you get a stem about 6 to 8 inches long, you can put a little rooting hormone on the bottom of that, and you can propagate that stem into a whole new plant. So cut it off about 6 to 8 inches long, little rooting hormone, put it in a moist environment, make sure it stays moist while it's developing those new roots, and you can have 2 poinsettia plants, or 3 or 4.
That's right. You could. I wouldn't, but you could. All right. And so September comes, you're going to keep watering, fertilizing, keep it at that 65, because now, we're already back in September. We're getting cold again. So watch that 60-degree mark. 65, ideal. Maybe a little bit warmer, that's not going to hurt either. But try not to make too many variations in light, wind, and water. All right. So come October, poinsettias are what's called a short day plant. And short day plants will go into flowering when we have short days, and more accurately, when we have long nights. So because it's a short day plant, October is when you're really going to start doing things to get it to turn red and flower again. So you're going to need about 10 weeks, and you're going to have 12 hours or less of light. So you basically need to keep it in darkness for at least 12 hours at a time. So closets, right? The plant still needs light to live, but it needs darkness to flower. So this is when the work comes in. You're putting it in the closet for 12 hours, bringing it out. Basically, the plant is responding to fluctuations of short days and long night. And that's going to say, okay, it's the time of season where I'm going to bloom again. So natural habitats in the south, it'll probably bloom outside. But up here, we're going to have to be doing some indoor work.
And that's mostly not because the days aren't short enough, but because you turn on lights in your house and your light bulb is going to tell this plant it's still daytime. So that's why you have to cover it or put it in a closet.
Right. So you're going to be doing that, and it's work. So you can kind of figure out now if you still want to do it or not. Well, at this point, the
impression you're not really a big fan of poinsettia.
No, I am, but
just not a fan of work, right?
Wow, Karen. Well, maybe that much effort into reflowering a plant that
you can just go by.
Probably is not going to look as good as before. You know what? The nursery guys out there are like cheering me on right now. So, and they're cringing at you. All right. So November, around the last week of November, you can stop the dark treatment, because now you've been doing it from October, November. So you've been doing it for about 10 weeks, 2 months. And November, you should start to see the flower buds at this point. So when you start seeing the flower buds and the red bracts, you did it. And now you're back in December. You can stop the fertilizer, keep it watered. Make sure you don't put it next to it too cold of a window. And follow these instructions that you had at the beginning. The end.
All right. So there is something that you do need to be aware of. And that is poinsettias do produce a milky sap that can cause irritation on some people. Some people react to it even as violently as poison ivy. So if you are sensitive, make sure that you wear gloves when you're working with the poinsettia, especially if you're trimming off and replanting it. And also, while it's not poisonous, if you eat it, it is not recommended, as it will make you feel terrible and you will probably throw up. Same with your pets. So do definitely keep it out of reach of your pet.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of those things that maybe there's a little bit of a debate on, but it's not good to eat. So if you see your cat nibbling on it, put some pepper spray on it or something, like some pepper flakes. That way the cat won't like it. Just any kind of deterrent, because you don't want animals chewing on it.
Yeah, just make sure that you're protecting yourself and your animals, and you will have a beautiful Christmas decoration or a beautiful houseplant as the summer comes in. And I hope that you will pick up some poinsettias from one of our local producers and enjoy them throughout this season.
But there are other things other than poinsettias. Isn't that right, Karen?
Yeah, so there's another plant that blooms or flowers directly around Christmas time, and that is a Christmas cactus. And that is how it got its name, is it usually flowers around Christmas time. This, again, is a wet-loving plant. It is a good house plant, though. It's very easy to keep, but you do want to water this a little more sparingly in the fall and winter. And then water freely in the spring and summer. So just like any house plant, the growing slows down in the wintertime, so you want to give it less water. That's across the board for any house plant. Less water in the wintertime, but do keep in mind that your house is a lot drier in the wintertime. So what we're actually recommending is less soil moisture. And so don't let your plants completely dry out and start wilting, but do make sure that you're watching it a little more closely as far as, is your house so dry that you water your plant and then those plants are wicking the water up into your air, helping to humidify your home, but it does dry out the soil more quickly. So don't let them dry out too much, but you do want to water them less than you would in the summertime because they won't be actively growing. All right. Your Christmas cactus will do best in a cool, sunny, but airy location. And keep them in that area from August until it starts to bud. And then once it starts to bud, you can go back to regular watering for the Christmas cactus. It is hardy from 55 to 70 degrees. They do get beautiful flowers on them. And they are almost like they are a succulent, but they are a spineless succulent. So you don't have to worry about getting stabbed by them. For their soil, they do require some sand so that they drain quickly. So 1 part sand, 1 part potting soil, and then another mixture of equal parts sand, peat moss, and a good garden loam. And so that is your care for your Christmas cactus. It's a pretty easy plant to take care of, a lot less maintenance than maintaining a poinsettia through the year for sure.
Right. And the key word there is maintaining it through the year for sure. Yeah. It is a pretty cool activity, and it does kind of really illustrate a lot of good points about plant life. So if you do have kids and you want to really show them a cool project and talk about why we're doing certain things, you can get fact sheets on this about poinsettias year-round care, and you'll get good detailed instructions, not only from what we said, but something written down that you could reference later. But I think the kids might enjoy it. You can even make it one of their chores to go in and take it out. You just got to make sure that you keep up with it, because poinsettia in the dark for a week might not do too hot.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you're looking for a chore for a younger child, watering a houseplant is a great chore because they can see if they haven't done the chore, and they understand that they are responsible for the life of something. And that usually gets them to be a little bit more responsible, but not always. So, but that's a great start out chore. And once they get a little more interested in things, putting it in the closet and taking it out and watching that change is a fun activity.
Yeah, and there's only one thing that kills a plant faster than not enough love, and that's too much love. So if you are teaching your kids about watering plants, make sure they don't do it all the time, because that'll kill a plant faster than not watering it at all.
And I do want to say one more thing before we run out of time. If you are getting some mistletoe or some bittersweet on a wreath, please do not feed it to the birds because they are an invasive plant. Mistletoe is a semi-parasitic plant, and oriental bittersweet has already destroyed several forest areas. So make sure that you aren't feeding those to the birds, and we'll talk a little bit about what you should feed the birds when we come back next. If you have any questions about topics we've talked about or have a suggestion, please give us a call at our local extension offices in Ohio and Belmont County. All right. I guess Ohio County, West Virginia, and Belmont County, Ohio.
I'm glad we cleared that up. That was a little confusing.
All right. Have a great one.
Okay, West Virginians, this next bit is for you because we need your help. Access to health services in West Virginia is critical. West Virginia often falls at the bottom of national health rankings related to overall health, including many chronic diseases. But we need you to make your voices heard, as well as the voice of your community, by telling us your health needs. A team of our colleagues from WVU are working to improve health in West Virginia. And so, 1 in 14 West Virginians will be selected to participate in the Mountain State Assessment of Trends in Community Health, or MATCH, survey to gather important health information specific to West Virginians. To make sure the statistics are accurate, we need to have 250 participants from each county respond. Why is this important? To improve the health of West Virginians, we need to hear from you. Your feedback will help the state and local communities better address your health needs, increase access to health resources, and better understand the reality of health in your community. Please, if you happen to be one of the West Virginians randomly selected to participate in the MATCH survey, I encourage you to take the time to share your health experiences. You can take the survey online, by mail, or even over the phone. You can learn more about the Match Survey by visiting wvmatchsurvey.org. That's wvmatchsurvey.org. Or you can call 304-581-1928. That's 304-581-1928. We appreciate your time and help in making West Virginia a better place. Thanks for listening to Extension Calling. This show is a collaboration between OSU Belmont County Extension Educator Dan Lima and WVU Ohio County Extension Agent Karen Cox. If you'd like a transcript of this show, contact us at the office. Also, let us know if you enjoy the show by ranking us on your podcast app.